All right, so get ready, because we're going deep on the prophecy of 3 Days of Darkness.
Ooh, that's a good one.
Yeah, it's fascinating, but kind of spooky, too. And we're going way beyond the usual, like, news reports and articles and stuff
Right.
for this one. And actually, you sent over some really fascinating transcripts
I did.
from the Collegiate Grafasi Investigations YouTube channel.
Yes, those are some interesting ones.
And these are from sessions where people are under hypnosis, trying to figure out this whole prophecy.
Yeah, they're trying to unravel the mysteries surrounding it. Exactly.
So we're talking about people in an altered state
Yes.
of consciousness,
Yeah.
trying to tap into some kind of hidden knowledge.
Yeah, it's a very unconventional way to investigate.
Wouldn't you say?
Absolutely. And I think before we even dive into the specifics of these transcripts, we should acknowledge that, hypnotic regression, as they call it, is not really an exact science.
Yeah.
It's more like guided introspection. So they're accessing memories and impressions and even symbolic imagery. But all of that can be influenced by their own personal beliefs or even their subconscious mind.
So we should approach these hypnotic insights,
Yes.
with a healthy dose of skepticism,
Yeah.
but keep an open mind too, right?
Exactly.
Well,
Now, the prophecy itself is attributed to Blessed Anna Maria Taigi.
okay.
She was an Italian woman who lived in the late 1700s, early 1800s, and her prophecy basically warns of two punishments from God.
Okay.
One is earthly, which would be in the form of wars and revolutions, and then the other is a celestial punishment. And that's where these 3 days of darkness come in, accompanied by pestilence aimed at enemies of religion.
So there's this dramatic prophecy.
Yeah.
But what I think is really interesting is how these hypnotic subjects interpret the source of it.
Yeah.
Because they don't all agree, do they?
No, they don't at all. One subject sees it as a deliberate manipulation, almost like this prophecy was planted to instill fear.
Okay.
Another subject sees it as a projection from some kind of higher being, but not necessarily a benevolent one, maybe one with an agenda.
Okay.
And then another subject describes it as a distorted message, like Taigi was receiving something, but it was warped or filtered through a manipulated channel.
So it's like they're all looking at the same puzzle, but seeing different pieces.
Right.
Why do you think it's so hard to get like a clear
Yeah.
picture of what this prophecy is all about?
It's a good question. It could be the nature of the prophecy itself, or maybe it reflects the subject's own biases and filters, even under hypnosis.
Yeah.
One subject actually said someone is dictating this, but the intent is not pure.
Ooh, that's kind of creepy.
Yeah, it's a little chilling, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's like we're dealing with layers of hidden agendas here.
Makes you wonder how much of what we believe is actually influenced by forces we're not even aware of.
It's a profound question, and one that I think we'll keep circling back to as we unpack these transcripts further.
So let's get into some of the specifics of the prophecy itself. So we've got these 3 days of darkness, we've got this inability to see, and then there's this pestilence
Right.
that targets those who are against religion.
Yes.
But when you look at what these hypnotic subjects envision, it gets even more interesting.
Yes, and I think one of the most striking things is that there's no consensus on what actually causes the darkness.
Okay.
So, for example, one subject describes massive spaceships blocking the sun, causing darkness and fear.
Wow.
But they don't perceive it as divine punishment. They see it as something that's done intentionally by these beings.
So it's like a cosmic eclipse,
Right.
but instead of the moon, it's like spaceships.
Exactly. It's wild imagery, right?
Yeah.
Then you have another subject who sees a thick layer of energy above the earth, like a suffocating blanket almost, that stifles human thoughts and will. And they even compared it to drowning in negative energy.
Oh, well, that sounds like...
Yeah. It's oppressive. And I think it emphasizes the potential psychological and emotional impact of this darkness, regardless of its physical cause.
So we have these two contrasting visions, right?
Right.
One is like a physical blockage of the sun.
Yes.
The other one is like this energetic suppression.
Uh-huh.
So the prophecy is open to multiple interpretations, and that's what I think makes this so interesting,
Yes.
is that we're not being told what to believe.
Right.
We're being presented with these different possibilities to consider.
That's a crucial point. I think the goal here is not to convince you of one interpretation over another, but to explore these different perspectives and then let you draw your own conclusions.
Now, there's this other hypnotic vision
Yes.
that takes things in a completely different direction.
Yeah.
And it involves this idea of hidden knowledge and manipulation.
Uh-huh.
So if you're into conspiracy theories, this is right up your alley.
Absolutely. This subject describes these ancient symbols and texts that are hidden amongst rocks that are somehow connected to the prophecy, but they're intended to be revealed later.
Okay.
And they believe that these symbols are meant to manipulate and control through fear and curiosity once they are discovered.
It's like a Dan Brown novel or something.
Right.
This idea of hidden knowledge being used for manipulation is pretty compelling.
It is, and I think it speaks to a deeper anxiety about hidden agendas and those in power. Whether or not there's any truth to these specific visions, I think they do tap into a very real human fear of being controlled or manipulated by forces that we don't understand.
And that fear, it seems, is a recurring theme in all of these sessions.
Yes.
Like, regardless of how they interpret the prophecy,
Yeah.
they all talk about this idea of fear as a powerful weapon.
Absolutely. And several of the subjects specifically link the intensity of the darkness to the level of fear that's experienced by humanity.
Okay.
So it's almost as if fear itself amplifies the darkness, giving it power over our thoughts and actions.
So it's not just about the darkness, it's about how we react to it.
Precisely how we let it affect us. One subject even warns that if we succumb to fear, that will lead to submission and a loss of free will.
Okay.
And ultimately, that would fulfill the agenda of whoever or whatever is behind the manipulation.
Ooh.
It's a stark warning about the consequences of unchecked fear.
Yeah, so they're saying that fear is the key
It seems that way.
to unlocking the worst parts of this prophecy.
Yeah. And on the flip side, the subjects who maintain a sense of inner peace and awareness seem less affected by the darkness. They see it as a challenge, even an opportunity for growth.
So it's almost like we have a choice in how we respond to this.
Absolutely.
We can either get into the fear and become victims, or we can face the unknown with courage and use it as like an opportunity for growth.
Exactly. And that choice, that ability to choose our response is incredibly empowering because it suggests that even in the face of potential darkness and manipulation, we still have agency.
This whole conversation is making me think about all the anxieties that we face, on a daily basis, like things like political instability and climate change and economic uncertainty.
Yeah.
It's like we're constantly being given reasons to be afraid.
Yeah, that's a great point. And what these hypnotic explorations suggest is that those anxieties can be manipulated, that they can be used to control our thoughts and behaviors to steer us in a particular direction.
So it's not just about this ancient prophecy about 3 days of darkness. It's about recognizing how fear and manipulation can operate in the real world.
Precisely. And that awareness is the first step towards reclaiming our power and making conscious choices even when we're faced with uncertainty and fear.
So we've explored the origins of the prophecy, the potential causes of the darkness, and this whole idea of fear and manipulation.
Right.
But we've also touched on this idea of personal empowerment,
Right.
like choosing how we respond and facing the unknown with courage. So there's a message of hope in here too.
Yes, absolutely. It's a reminder that even in the darkest of times, we have the power to choose our own path, to cultivate inner strength, and to find that light within ourselves.
Now, speaking of hidden agendas and manipulation, there's one more element of this prophecy that I think we need to address,
Okay.
and it involves a rather unexpected figure, Bill Gates.
Bill Gates, okay.
It might seem like a strange connection, but according to these hypnotic sessions,
Yeah.
there's a link between Gates' proposal to dim the sun
Okay.
and the 3 days of darkness prophecy. What do you make of that?
Well, it is a curious connection and one that the hypnotic subjects find quite concerning.
Stay tuned, because in the next part of our deep dive, we're going to unravel this Bill Gates connection. We'll explore the specific details of what these hypnotic subjects see during the 3 days of darkness,
Yeah.
and we'll discuss what it all means for us.
We'll also touch on some of the practices and mindsets that can help us navigate these potentially challenging times.
So don't go anywhere. The deep dive continues.
Welcome back to our deep dive into the prophecy of 3 days of darkness. Before the break, we were talking about the role of fear and manipulation and how this prophecy might be playing out in ways we don't even realize. Remember, we're approaching these transcripts with a healthy dose of skepticism, but also with an open mind.
That's right. And we were just about to get into this whole Bill Gates connection.
Yes.
And his proposal to dim the sun to combat global warming.
Okay, so Bill Gates, he's known for philanthropy and tech innovation. So
Right.
how does he fit into all this?
Well, several of the hypnotic subjects link Gates' proposal to the 3 days of darkness, but not in the way you might think.
Okay.
They suggest that Gates, despite his good intentions, might be unknowingly influenced or even manipulated by a non-human intelligence.
Hold on. Are we saying that Bill Gates is like a puppet for some shadowy alien overlords? That sounds a little far out there.
Not necessarily a puppet, but perhaps a pawn.
Okay.
In a much larger game, remember, these hypnotic subjects are exploring the energetic and metaphysical realms,
Right.
where intentions and influences can be very subtle and complex, So they're not talking about like a literal control,
Okay.
but rather a subtle manipulation of thoughts and ideas.
So maybe Gates genuinely believes he's doing the right thing,
Right.
but there might be other forces at play that he's not even aware of.
Exactly. It's like someone's whispering in his ear, guiding his actions toward a specific outcome, even if it appears beneficial on the surface.
Okay, so this connects to that idea that we're not always in control of our thoughts and actions,
Right.
that we can be influenced by things that we're not even aware of.
Yes.
Mm.
And this can be an unsettling thought for some because it challenges our notions of free will and autonomy.
Yeah, it really makes you question things like, what if all of our decisions, even the ones that we think are good,
Yeah.
are actually being influenced by something else?
Right. And it really highlights the need for discernment and critical thinking,
Yeah.
encouraging us to be more aware of our own inner landscape and to really question the narratives that we're being fed, especially the ones that promote fear and division. So it's not just about Bill Gates and aliens, but also about these more subtle forms of manipulation that happen every day.
Exactly, whether it's through the media or advertising or even social pressure, we're constantly bombarded with messages that can influence our thoughts and behaviors.
Yeah, it's like there's a sucker born every minute, right?
It's true, and that's why practices like meditation and mindfulness and simply being present in the moment can be so valuable because they help us cultivate that inner awareness and discernment.
So we can step back from the noise and make our own choices.
Exactly.
Okay, so we need to be more aware of the influences around us, both the seen and the unseen ones. But let's bring it back to the prophecy itself.
Okay.
These hypnotic subjects describe some pretty intense scenarios during those 3 days of darkness.
They do.
So let's dive into some of those details.
Okay, well, one subject describes the darkness as a physical obstruction of sunlight. They saw massive spaceships encircling the Earth, and their sheer size was blocking out the sun's rays, causing a global blackout. It's like a cosmic eclipse. Only instead of the moon, we have giant alien vessels
Wow,
casting a shadow over the planet.
that's a pretty dramatic image.
It is, and it's interesting how that ties back to the subject who interpreted the origin of the prophecy as a manipulation orchestrated by non-human entities.
Right, so it's almost like these visions are supporting each other,
Yeah.
painting this picture of a coordinated effort to plunge the world into darkness.
It is a fascinating connection.
Okay.
And then we have another subject who describes a different kind of darkness, not physical, but energetic.
Okay.
This one saw a dense layer of negative energy blanketing the earth, stifling thoughts and emotions, creating a feeling of suffocation and panic.
That sounds awful.
It does. They describe it as a feeling of being trapped, being unable to think clearly, or to even access hope.
So it's like the psychic smog descending upon the world, just sucking the light and joy out of everything.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. And I think what's interesting is that both of these scenarios, while very different in their depiction of the darkness, really highlight the power of perception.
So it's not just about the darkness itself, but about how we react to it.
Exactly. Our perception of the situation can either intensify the negativity or potentially even diminish its power over us.
Okay, so if we can stay grounded and positive, even amidst all the chaos,
Yes.
maybe we can kind of weather the storm.
Yeah, but it's easier said than done.
Right. Like, how do you stay calm and centered when it feels like the world is falling apart around you?
Well, the hypnotic subjects offer some insight into that as well.
Yeah.
They talk about the importance of cultivating a strong connection to our inner selves, to something greater than ourselves,
Okay.
whether that's spirituality or nature or even a sense of purpose.
So it's about building resilience, both individually and collectively.
Exactly. It's about finding ways to stay connected to our inner light, even when surrounded by darkness, and remembering that we're not alone in this.
So let's talk about some of the specific predictions surrounding the 3 days of darkness.
Okay.
Like this pestilence that targets the enemies of religion.
Right.
That's a pretty intense idea.
It is a loaded concept, and it seems like even the hypnotic subjects struggle with how to interpret this part of the prophecy.
Yeah.
Some of them see it as a literal disease, like a biological weapon, unleashed to punish those who are deemed unworthy.
Okay, so a very grim scenario.
Yeah. But others see it more metaphorically as a purging of negative energies, a cleansing of sorts, not necessarily a physical plague, but maybe more like a spiritual or energetic purging.
So it's about facing our inner demons and confronting that darkness within ourselves.
Exactly. And this ties back to the importance of shadow work.
Right, so the pestilence, whether it's literal or metaphorical, could actually be seen as a catalyst for personal transformation.
It's possible it forces us to confront our own inner darkness, and then we emerge stronger on the other side.
That's an interesting perspective.
It is It suggests that even amidst chaos and darkness, there is this potential for growth and evolution. And maybe that's the ultimate message of this prophecy, that it's not just a warning of impending doom, but it's an invitation to awaken, to become more conscious, and to tap into our innate resilience.
It's like we have this choice.
Yeah.
We can either give in to the fear and despair, or we can rise to the challenge and emerge transformed.
Exactly. And that choice, that power to choose our response, lies within each of us.
Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground here. We've talked about alien manipulation, the psychological impact of darkness, shadow work. It's a lot to take in.
It is.
But there's one more detail from these transcripts that I want to touch on.
Okay.
Do you remember how one subject mentioned finding information about the 3 days of darkness at NASA?
Yes, that was a particularly intriguing session.
Yeah.
The subject was instructed to locate and scan top-secret documents related to a statement supposedly made by Charles Bolden,
The former NASA administrator.
right, about an impending solar storm that would disrupt Earth's balance.
And they found something.
They did.
But it wasn't on paper.
No, it was in the form of recordings and images that were very heavily guarded.
They describe these recordings as instructions, detailing what to do, when, where, and with whom, almost like a blueprint.
A blueprint for dealing with this threat, right?
Exactly, but here's the thing. They felt that these instructions were based on fabricated information.
Like someone planted a false narrative within NASA.
Yeah, leading them to prepare for a danger that doesn't even exist.
Right, so this raises the possibility of a disinformation campaign,
Okay.
a deliberate attempt to mislead and manipulate those in positions of power.
So it's not just about controlling the masses through fear. It's about infiltrating these institutions
Potentially, yeah.
and using them to further this agenda.
It really makes you think.
It does. So we have this prophecy that might be coming from a non-human source. It's being spread through religious figures and maybe even government agencies, all to generate fear and control.
Right.
And now we're being told to question everything, even the institutions that we thought we could trust.
It can be overwhelming.
It is. So what does all this mean for us? Like regular people just trying to live their lives. How do we even begin to make sense of all this?
That's the million-dollar question, and one that we will continue to explore in the final part of our deep dive.
Okay.
But for now, let's take a moment to just digest everything we've talked about so far.
Okay.
We've journeyed through some pretty intense territory, exploring themes of fear and manipulation and the potential for darkness and light within ourselves and the world around us.
It's been a wild ride.
It has, but amidst all the unsettling possibilities, there's also this glimmer of hope.
Yeah.
We've seen how even in the face of potential darkness, there's a power within each of us, a capacity for resilience and transformation and love that can never truly be extinguished.
And on that note, we'll take a quick break. When we return, we'll wrap up our deep dive into the prophecy of 3 days of darkness with some final thoughts and insights, and hopefully even a glimmer of hope amidst all this uncertainty. So stay tuned. Welcome back. We're talking about NASA and hidden instructions and disinformation campaigns.
It's a lot to think about.
It is. So where do we go from here? We've explored this prophecy from like every angle, ancient prophecies and hypnotic visions and modern day people like Bill Gates, even manipulation in places like NASA.
Right.
It's easy to feel kind of overwhelmed with all this talk about darkness and fear and manipulation.
Yeah.
So what's the takeaway for our listeners? What can we actually do with all this information?
Well, that's the question, isn't it? Amidst all this uncertainty and this potential chaos, what can we as individuals do to navigate these times? And I think the hypnotic subjects offer some pretty practical guidance.
Okay.
They emphasize over and over again the importance of cultivating inner strength and raising our vibrations and choosing love over fear.
Okay, but like, what does that look like, practically speaking, for the average person listening?
Right.
What can they do?
Well, one subject talks about mindfulness, being present in the moment and not getting swept up by anxieties about the future.
Oh, yeah.
Things like meditation, spending time in nature, anything that brings you joy and peace.
So grounding ourselves in the present moment, finding things that calm us down.
Exactly.
Okay.
And another subject emphasizes the power of collective consciousness.
Okay.
If enough people choose a positive mindset, if enough of us focus on things like love and compassion and unity, it can have a real impact on the world around us.
So be the change you want to see.
Exactly.
Okay.
And remember, these prophecies are not set in stone. They are possibilities, not predictions. We have the power to influence the outcome through our choices and our actions.
So we're not just victims here.
No.
We have a choice.
We have agency. We can choose how we respond to these prophecies, to these potential challenges.
So we can choose fear or we can choose love.
Exactly. Despair or hope. And that choice ultimately determines the course of our individual journey and our collective journey.
It's a pretty powerful message.
It is even in the face of darkness and uncertainty. There's this glimmer of hope, this reminder that we have the power to create a better future for ourselves and for everyone.
That's a good point to end on.
It is, you are not alone in this. We are all connected, and together we can navigate these times and come out stronger, wiser, and more compassionate.
So what does it all mean? We've explored this prophecy of 3 days of darkness from so many different sides.
We have.
We've gone deep on hypnotic explorations in ancient texts and controversial modern-day ideas.
Yeah.
And we've found this really complex web of potential causes and motivations and consequences.
We have.
But ultimately, the message I'm getting is one of empowerment.
Absolutely. It's a call to awaken to our true potential, to cultivate inner strength and discernment, and to choose love over fear. It's a reminder that even when faced with darkness, the light within us can never be extinguished.
And on that note, we'll leave you with a final thought.
Okay.
If fear is the ultimate weapon, what steps can you take to cultivate courage and resilience and a discerning mind? What helps you stay grounded and positive in a world that's full of manipulation and uncertainty? Explore these questions for yourself, and let's continue this conversation beyond this deep dive. Thanks for listening.